Good morning, Accelerant Referrals. This is another presentation from Ted Rykoski. Ted is president of Ascent Training, an authorized licensee of Sandler Training. Ted works with business owners, sales leaders, and salespeople who are looking for ways in which they can develop their skills, define their sales process, and as a result, grow their revenues and profits. Now for a new insight on a common business challenge, please welcome Ted Rykoski.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks, Gabe, for the intro. So I want to talk a little bit about something that's very common, especially it comes up quite often as you dig into people's specific challenges around business growth, their development, and it's all about attitude. So I've got some statements that are up on the screen, and I'm sure that if you've done any reading of any types of business books, you've seen these types of these lines. So whether or not you think you can or you think you can't, you're right, by Henry Ford. And basically the concept is it's all about your attitude. So you think of positive thinking, glass half full or half empty, but there's a lot of science behind this. And attitude has more of an impact on your results than you might think. So one of the things that we talk about at Sandler Training is obviously it's sales training to begin with, but quite often when people think of sales training, they focus on what they think it's all about, which is quite often technique. So am I using the right words? Am I calling at the right time of day? Those types of things. And quite often, yeah, it's great content. It can help you improve, but what we know at Sandler Training is that is not the be-all, end-all. So attitude and behavior are part of what we call the success triangle. So behavior, attitude, and technique. You'll see on the screen there that attitude is on top, and it's because there's a priority around attitude. And quite often it can be the foundation of how your results are driven. So start off with the definition of attitude out of American Heritage Dictionary. Attitude being a state of mind or feeling with regard to some matter. So in a case of sales, you got to think about what those matters are. At Sandler, we train around you, your company, and your marketplace. And it's really the attitude about yourself as an individual and the role that you're playing as a salesperson or sales professional or business owner, quite frankly. Are your belief sets in the right place? And are they driving you? Do you have the right attitude about yourself? Same thing with your company. Whether or not you own your company or you're working for somebody else, do you have the right attitude as you're approaching the market? And your marketplace as well. So it could be what you're selling, could be the industry that you are in, or it could be the geography in which you're selling. So if anything is off in any one of those places, you're really not doing yourself any favors, and you've got to do a head check and get those in line to ensure that you're going to perform at your absolute top. There's one rule that we have at Sandler, which is you can perform in the roles only in a manner consistent with how you see yourself conceptually. In other words, if you don't see that either you, your company, or your marketplace, you're on the top, you will never perform in that manner. So what do? The first thing you really need to do is take a self-inventory. Think about your belief systems, how you feel about yourself, your company, your marketplace. Are your belief systems, are they supportive? Are they non-supportive? How do you take control of them? How is your I versus your R? So one of the things in which we teach at Sandler is the identity versus role. So it's really an inventory of how you're feeling about yourself, your identity, versus how you feel about your role. And there's an important part that the two really need to be separated. Too many people, and especially men, quite often, their identity is very, very to how they perform at work and how much money that they're bringing in. So if somebody has a bad day, let's say they don't close a sale they expected, they didn't make as many calls as they had goaled in the beginning of the day, maybe they didn't perform a 10 in their role. So they feel on the lower end of the scale on a role, and that can bring their identity down. The reality is you've got to separate the two. Your identity has got to be at that 8 to 10. You've got to be feeling right about yourself. Some days you're going to be off. You may not have an 8, 9, or 10 day performance in your role, because you got to separate that from your identity and make sure that the two are not tied together. The third thing is really, you've got to take action. So what do I mean by that? It's an outlook of possibility. So there was a study recently done, and it was, I don't have these specifics in front of me, I didn't have those notes, but the thought was about a fixed mindset versus the mindset of possibility, and how that fixed mindset really limits your behaviors and your outlook and quite frankly, your performance. So again, I talked about new beliefs. Are your beliefs supportive or non-supportive? If they're not supportive of how you're feeling about yourself and your attitude, you got to change those. So how can you develop new beliefs that support your goals and what you want out of your performance, and quite frankly, your life? New judgments. So back to the company, back to your marketplace. If you have the right mindset, obviously you can perform. The wrong mindset is going to throw you off. Another piece to this really is deciding on the right behaviors. So one thing that aligns well, when you're doing the right behaviors, you've got the right outlook. So there are some people who will not do cold calls. They will not pick up the phone. That phone becomes 400 pounds. It's tough to pick up. And the belief is that I can make 10 calls, I can make 100 calls. I'm not going to get through. It's not successful. The reality is it is a very productive way in which to get new prospects, new contacts in most industries. There are some behaviors that will yield you nothing. So you've got to first identify which behaviors are going to be the most productive, get the right mindset around them. And sometimes that means new judgments in the behaviors that you're doing. And it's new actions. So thinking about what has created success in the past, where you may have dropped the ball, and again, defining which are going to be the best and which are going to be most successful for you. Some topics here that came from that article that I read on the fixed mindset versus the mindset of opportunity. Don't stay helpless. So you've got basically a cycle of not being successful. So people are not feeling so great about themselves. Back to the identity and role. If they don't perform well in their role one day, they can take that attitude, that mindset into the following day and get on a consistent cycle of not being successful. So don't stay helpless. Stand up, identify where you failed, and take on some new actions, new beliefs, and being successful. Take action. So there are a lot of people, myself included, who honestly believe that behaviors sometimes drive attitude. So you may be starting the day not feeling like you're going to be very successful, and it's going to be tough, but you start picking up that phone or you start knocking on doors to go on prospect, and the success that you get out of it, the feeling that you get out of what you're doing, can lead to success, and change your attitude immediately. Expect results. So expect that you will be successful. Without having that attitude and mindset, you may not get that success. Be flexible. So again, going back to identity and role, there are some times, again, where you are not going to achieve your best. But know that with some flexibility, knowing that you will not be fantastic every day, you can still perform at a high role. And don't complain when things don't go your way. Horrible habit, playing victim, and the world's against you. You got to be having the right attitude, the positive mindset. Drop the complaining when things don't go your way. Pick yourself up and change and head in the right path. To sum it all up, you really can change your attitude to create your success. You can change your result through some belief system changes and rewiring your brain. On that note, Dave, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity, and if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Well, again, Ted, I think you knocked it out of the park. When we have presentations like this, it's not just about blowing yourself up and showing how great you are. It's about offering value, which in effect does the same thing. But I think you just did a great job in adding value to this discussion. So I really appreciate that. Does anybody have any questions for Ted?
So Ted, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So Ted, what's the difference between mindset and attitude? He's on mute.
No, he's not.
I'm muted. I somehow muted myself. So,
okay.
Peter, great question. For some people, it may be one and the same. For me, mindset is part of attitude. And it really is. I mean, I guess the way I'm thinking about it, if you go back to the triangle there, the mindset of you, your company, and your marketplace, that's really the most important pieces of attitude. Honestly, in a lot of cases, they're one and the same, Peter.
Okay.
I don't know if you feel differently.
Yeah. Well, my feeling is that your mindset would hover over at a higher level than your attitude, because your attitude could change, but you can maintain a mindset that would influence your attitude.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right.
You're a philosopher.
What? What'd you say?
You're a philosopher.
Yeah.
A philosopher. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. And thanks, Ted. I really appreciate it. Great job.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay.